You know, a lot of times women think, well, it's the time that he put in because you operate on time that says, okay, he's ready for marriage with me because he's been here for 4 years.
Yep.
And it's like, nah, that's not the case. That man needs to feel some level of wholeness within himself. If he does not feel that, he is not moving forward. Until he feels like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this and we can do this together. You know what I'm saying?
Welcome to Black Aristocrat, where kings and queens beam and get seen.
Black Aristocrat, we here. Yeah, yes.
Welcome to Black Aristocrat. I'm Alisha Melvin. I'm here today with my guest, Keith Norman. Just a little bit about Keith and why I chose Keith to be on Black Aristocrat. What I've chosen to do on this show is to bring out those in our community who I feel are actual kings. So I feel Keith is a king based on the fact that he's an amazing husband. He's an amazing father. He's excellent in his career. He's got his education on point. He's also known to me as Sneaker King and coined the term lawyer, which explains what I do for a living as a lawyer and a real estate broker. I am so excited to have Keith with us today, and we're going to get started talking about Keith and all things that he has to offer. Keith is also a minister, and when did you become a minister, Keith?
I got ordained February of 2020, so...
Wow, this is your fourth year?
Well, yeah. So pre-pandemic, pretty much the month before. So it's like ordination happens, pandemic happens, and everything ministry life after that happens. So it's pretty intense transition, but you know.
Well, you know what's so interesting about this is I've always known you to be in church. So just let me just take it back for the guests. Can you just share with us where you're from?
Yeah. So I was born in West Texas, born in Amarillo. I pretty much grew up majority of my life kind of Paris, Texas, and West Texas. So I would spend the school year in East Texas and Paris, and I'd spend the summers in West Texas with my grandparents. And so, church instilled in me my whole life, my entire family. My mother played the piano in church coming up, as well as my great aunts and cousins all would make up the choir back home in West Texas. And so, church was kind of early for me. I was fortunate enough to grow up around my great grandparents.
Wow.
And so I knew and had a relationship with my great grandfathers, my great grandfathers, great grandmothers, great grandmothers, etc. And so I watched my great grandfathers build the church. I watched them build it from the ground up. You know, so
brick and mortar, you mean? Oh, wow.
Yeah, like they were carpenters. They built their own homes.
Okay.
You know, my great grandfather had he pretty much farmed on his land. So he grew a garden, he raised rabbits, he raised chickens, roosters, you know, that kind of thing. They had grapevines, they built, they made their own jelly, they had preserves, they canned, green beans. I'd be out there with them snapping beans as a kid.
Wow.
So I was raised around all of that. And so, I really come from, the lineage of hardworking people that they weren't just pillars in their community, they were doers.
Wow.
And so being able to see them be deacons in the church and build the church and be able to view that as a young kid, that foundation, and I know that's kind of a double entendre in the foundation of the church, but them instilling that foundation in me is where I come from.
Ooh. So
there was never no going to be any straying away from God or anything like that. That's what I saw. That's what I respected.
Wow.
That kind of thing.
That's That's over the top amazing. I mean, I come from the East Coast, so it's so amazing when I hear these stories about, the South. And especially we're talking about a place like Amarillo. I'm curious how big was the Black community
Well,
there?
let me shout. So I was born in Amarillo. 'Cause my biological father's from there. My grandparents lived in Littlefield, Texas, a small town right outside of Lubbock, Texas. And so yeah, that's where my mother, my aunt grew up. Both of them are my loves in my life. I was raised in a household where after my great grandfather passed away, my great grandmother and my great grandmother grew up in my house with me, with my mom and my aunts, and all my cousins are girls. So I grew up. My stepfather worked for the railroad 42 years.
Wow.
So I watched him, be a pillar in our family and work hard as he did, always on the road and things like that. But I grew up in a household full of women. So I have a natural respect for women because of that.
Wow. So this is just hitting, everything is just hitting home. Because I have one son, and he grew up around a bunch of women, and that just seems to be the path in our family. And he's turned out to be like a fantastic young man. And I mean, you are by far the upper echelon of everything I think about when I think about a macho, God-fearing man. And so I really appreciate you sharing that history because I definitely didn't get to grow up around something like that. So how large was the Black community there?
I mean, it's a very small town, so I wouldn't say it's a large Black community, but you grow up in that area and that few blocks of just knowing everyone. Mm-hmm. So the church was, literally 100 feet from his house that they built. And then, it's just a block full of people that you may or may not be related to in a small, close-knit type community. And so, that was an area where, I could be in as much trouble with my grandparents as I could be with the next door neighbors.
Wow.
Being raised around people that would really check you for, what you're doing. Y'all don't need to be out there doing that. I'm going to tell you, I know Faye. I'm telling Faye on you, that kind of thing. And so, and I'd be running around my little knucklehead with my cousins that were older than me, knuckleheads. And we did the most, in that small town. But, it was community, and it was always respect. You had to respect elders then. Mm-hmm. I was raised up, yes ma'am, no sir, that kind of thing. And it was because the way that they brought me up around people that, like I said, those people would check you. Mm-hmm. I could be, 2 blocks away, but they knew my grandfather in that community, and they would tell him. Yes. And he would bring me in the house and check me, and he made sure that I would work hard. But then he also cultivated things. And, my grandfather built me a basketball goal. He built it off the side of his house with some plywood and put a rim on there. I didn't have concrete back there. It was dirt. Wow. So, handling the ball and stuff like that, you could easily lose the ball in something rocky like that. But it was easy, But he made sure that he instilled values in me that would last for a lifetime. I am one of those people. I feel like, I'm blessed to have that within me, but I also feel like I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams.
Wow. Why do you say that? I love that.
It's because,
ancestors' wildest dreams.
It's because they didn't have the opportunities that I have to be successful. Mm. They had to really make it on their own. Like I said, they were carpenters and things of that name. Now, my great grandfather, he worked as a mailman, but then he also, built houses. He would go do paint work. He would go do floors, those kind of things. And like I said, he had a whole garden. I literally watched him kill a chicken and cook a chicken, like those kind of things. Yeah. And so,
snap his neck, right?
Yeah. And in those times, Black people, we didn't get the respect that we, might deserve or whatever the case may be, and they went through, segregation and Jim Crow and all of those things, and so when you would hear those stories, and they would tell me those stories about how they came up, that stuff it's internalized with me. So I try to approach each day with the grace and knowing that they set the foundation for me to come out here and be successful and be able to do things that are great.
Yes.
And also know that, that I should have confidence in who I am, regardless of, what's put in front of me. So.
Absolutely. This turns out to be more amazing than I could ever imagine. And so, they say down in West Texas or Amarillo, I love Miranda Lambert. So they has this song, Everybody Dies Famous in a Small Town. And I just love that. Also, the Mason-Dixon line. So I just love that you share that story with me. It sounds like you had a lot of community growing up, that old fashioned thing where, like you said, the neighbors would check you. You would play outside. You could play outside. You could run wild. But if something turned out to go wrong, there was always somebody in the community to
100%.
to check you. So that transition into them building that church. So was it small? Was it mainly family, or how large did that church become?
I mean, that church still stands today.
Wow.
And it looks just like it did when they built it.
Oh my
same
goodness.
Carpet, same walls, everything. I mean,
We got to get pictures.
it looks like brand new, like it was, like it's never been touched, and I think that probably goes into.
Do they still have services there?
Yeah, they still have services
Wow,
there. There's
that's
a new
amazing.
pastor, of course, but yeah, like when there'll be a reunion, what they call the Dunbar reunion, which Dunbar was an all black school that was there that, pre like segregation and everything. It was an all black school. So they still honor that school, even though it doesn't exist today, each year. And they have a reunion and they bring people back in town. And so my family will go back in town and be a part of the reunion, and we'll go to church there. And my mom might jump on the piano and my cousins will jump up in the choir and, that kind of thing. And who knows, one of us might preach. Like, they really set a tone of that community and especially, as black people and seeing, there's still people that are there that are elders that attended that Dunbar school. So to hear their stories,
Yes.
Again, it's something that as an adult, I can definitely grasp it more than I did when I was a kid. But, to see them and hear them tell their stories, it makes me go back into the workspace and say, man, I can keep pushing because that's what they had to do.
And and absolutely, that's what they had to do. And growing up in the South, my understanding, it was just a lot more difficult here in the South. But what I think is so amazing in the folks that I meet is that they're landowners, and me participating in real estate, it's really big. I deal with a lot of land issues where land is left to families, is left to multiple people. And that's a whole nother thing that we can get into. But I love that the land ownership was there. And one of the things that I love to do on this show is pay homage to the ancestors. And so I really appreciate you sharing that information. So you did that transition from the Amarillo area to, and I wanted, before I move on with that, I want to say you'd still take the kids down when you do that Dunbar reunion.
They have been there. Maddox, my oldest is 8. My youngest is 3. So he hasn't. I think when we took him, he might have been 5. So we'll probably go this year.
Okay.
And we'll go and he'll be able to process it a lot more.
Yes.
This is where Daddy grew up. This is where my great-great-grandfather's house is. This is where he had chickens and things of that nature. So, as you get older, you can retain more. And so I think it'll be more interesting to see him as an older child kind of embrace it.
Do you know about farming? Or did they not really?
I think I've become kind of cityfied, even though I have country roots. At least optics wise, I definitely look cityfied. I still have country roots. I'm not personally going to go out and start a garden, I probably can. My cousin Steph, she's started a garden in her backyard because again, we were all raised together, so she has a
Right.
garden and those things, and cook and all of that. But almost people nowadays, I feel like I'm stimulate the economy. Like if you do it, I'll pay you to do it. I'm not getting out there mowing the yard. I'll pay somebody. That kind of
That's
thing.
good old Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so spoiled in Texas because like my husband still wants to like cut the grass on the East Coast. I'm like at the East Coast house and the neighbors do that. And I'm like, guys, like we don't do that in Texas. Like,
Yeah, but see, with me, now I will say, animals and stuff like that, I'm not scared of anything. So, my wife scared of snakes and I'm like, oh, it's a snake. Let's go kill it or whatever the case may be. So if I ran across that kind of stuff, like,
what is it? Red on yellow, kill a fella? Or
yeah, something like
something like that. Yes. So I just wanted to, so based on that, so then you went from Amarillo then to Paris?
Yeah, so I spent the bulk of my school years in Paris. Like I moved to Paris when I was 5, I believe. Yeah. So I spent all of elementary, middle school, high school, all of that in Paris, Texas, which is, again, another smaller community. It's under 30,000 people, population wise. And I was fortunate enough, my mom worked for the school. So I was fortunate enough to go to a fairly diverse school in comparison to the Crosstown school, which was pretty much a predominantly white school. And so if I went to that school, it would have been one of maybe 3 Black families in the entire school.
Is that Hunt County? Paris?
That's Lamar County.
Oh, Lamar County. Okay, yeah. I spent a lot of time Hunt, Quinlan, just like all these Wise County. I'm in all these counties, and and I go and I'm like, I don't know anyone here, and I'm thinking, who lives here? And so it's just so awesome that I had some reference point because I've been to Paris so many times.
Yeah, you swing through Paris, you got to go see like the Eiffel Tower. We got our own Eiffel Tower. It has a cowboy hat on it, a little red cowboy hat. You say you like country music, go get you a picture. Put your Beyonce in the background, and rock out.
Oh, no. Yes, I will, because I love it. So you said growing up there, it wasn't a lot of representation, but I guess was it almost like
representation. So that's interesting that you bring that up because I was having this conversation just recently at work. Growing up in a small town like Paris, Texas, you don't really see a lot of like extremely successful African American figures. They either work in a soup plant, or something like that because it's Campbell Soup. It was one of the plants
Campbell?
that's there. We had Kimberly Clark, which is another plant that's there.
Okay.
So the most successful African American people you would see there work in a plant or something like that, or you have your coaches and things of that work for the school district. My mom was a social worker, so and I tell people all the time, I don't know that I would have went to college if my mom didn't go to college while I was coming up. So, I watched my mom go to school and my aunt go to school, and elevate their careers while I was in school myself, but I didn't meet, Black executives and things like that. I didn't meet a Black executive really until I graduated college and met my mentor. And that's what really changed my life because I met somebody that looked like me, that was extremely successful in business, that would joke like me. That representation is what, transitioned who I was into recognizing who I could become, because it's hard to be what you never see.
That's true.
So I didn't come up around that. So I was green to a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so I moved like a person that was from Paris, Texas. I drug dealers was the successful people,
Right.
in the area that I grew up in. I saw the cars and the things that they had, and that's stuff that I would desire, at that age. But I didn't see anybody doing that on a legal level until I moved up here and went to UNT and started kind of being exposed to the world a lot more.
So that is. So I love that you bring up the mentorship because that is just so important for folks to pick up. that you did find yourself a mentor. How did you find your mentor? And tell me more about that mentor.
Honestly, just happenstance. Again, I was green. I was kind of wanted to carve my own way. I went to school for acting. So,
Always wanted to go to school for acting. Oh my goodness. But I never got a chance to.
Yeah. So I just graduated school and was like, oh, I'm about to move to LA, go chase the dream, that kind of life. And, my mom, had gone to a women's conference and, met this lady, Apostle Tina, Pastor Tina at that time. And she was telling me all these things about her and, oh, she's amazing. And, she preaches the word mighty and these kind of things. And her husband's this, big executive at AT&T or whatever in corporate America. And I, this is how green I was. I can tell you, I'm from Paris. The entire time she was talking to me, I just knew for certain that she was talking about white people. I was like, these people are white.
Right.
This lady's white. Her husband's white. And, she's made a connection with these people in church, and that's fine. But then she says, well, they're starting a church in Louisville at this hotel. And I'm living in Louisville. I just moved from Denton to Louisville, just graduated college. I'm living in Louisville. And she's like, they're going to start church, in Louisville at this hotel. And so the hotel was a mile from where I lived. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll come there,
God.
whatever. And I went in there and I met, of course, the pastor, and I met her husband. And I he just kind of passively was just like, hey, send me your resume. And I was like, this looks like a respectable dude. I'll send him my resume. I don't, no big deal. And I sent them my resume, and some lady called me up out the blue one day and was just like, hey, got your resume from him. What do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know nothing about your company or whatever the case may be.
Oh,
and
wow.
she was like, well, you did well in school. You got great grades. I could put you in this business leadership development program, and you'll move to Atlanta for 6 months, and then we'll disperse you. And I was like, oh, move to Atlanta 6 months? That don't sound too bad. But I said, by disperse, do you mean you'll send me back to Dallas, or you'll send me to LA where I would like to be? Or do you mean you can send me to Spokane, Washington? And she said, well, yeah, the latter. And I said, well, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be just put somewhere in the middle of the country, And so she was like, well, you got all this sales experience. I worked at the Buckle selling clothes the entire time.
Yes,
the entire time I was in college. That was my hustle.
Oh, that might be. I don't know. You stay fly.
I had all the clothes and all that. It was a cool job. But she's like, y'all sales experience and they make good money. And I was like, well, what's your idea of good money? And she's like, well, I can't tell you that, but so I was like, out of respect for this guy, I'll just go through the interview process.
Yes.
And I did. And they sent me a contract, and I went, looked at it, I was like, man, you mean to tell me at bare minimum, if I just hit my goal, I'll make $50,000.
Wow.
To sell cell phones in the air condition. And I had friends coming out of college. They were all taking entry level positions at, mortgage companies and things like that, paying them $33,000, $34,000. So I'm like, I'm that much further ahead of my friends. But I still was like, oh man, I'm about to get this bag, save this money, and move to LA. And, I started working there, and I walked in the first day, and this guy said, well, how much money did you make here last year? Guy said he made $85,000. I said, you made $85,000 in here selling cell phones?
People don't understand.
Like, I'm about to go. I'm about to get it for real. And I remember calling my mom, like, is my chick bigger than yours yet? That kind of thing. But that was how I met him, and took on that job. Back to your original question, how I met him was just that, just meeting him there in church. And then we began to cultivate a relationship. Just, I guess he saw something in me, maybe that I didn't even see in myself at that time. And we began to cultivate a relationship that way. And, he's been my mentor ever since.
Well, you know what? I did not know that our little church that we attended, right? Did I meet you? I met you at the church.
Yeah.
With Apostle Tina, which I met her on the side of the road. She was going to buy some hair, and she was coming, and I said she got a flat tire, and I said, that's okay. I'm in Allen. I said, which way are you? She said 121. I said, I'll come and meet you. I met her on the side of the road. When I tell you, when she just walked up to me with the flat tire and all, it was just like a glow around her. And I looked and I was like, I said, you are beautiful. Like, and she just said, oh, so are you. And then we just started talking. And from that day, it was just all love. And then I went to hear her preach, and, it was a done deal for me. And we were tiny. Like you said, it was at Louisville still. The church was still meeting at the hotel in Louisville. And I can't believe it's been that many years. How long ago you think that?
Well, that was, they just had a 14-year anniversary. So 14 years. Has
it been that long? That is crazy. So I had no idea that. I'm not exactly sure what year you and I met. I just remember, I don't even know what year. I know we did real estate business together. I sold you and your wife a house.
Let me see. Maddox is 8. So that was 8 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
Crazy. It's been, and so just think about it. Before that, we were just attending the same church. And so, yes, I know this amazing mentor of yours who, what was he, an officer at AT&T?
Yeah, he was an executive. He was the president, in multiple spaces. Of course.
And CEO and it all over the place.
Now he's a CEO.
Yeah.
So he's phenomenal. But a guy that, very humble. His humility is like second to none. And like I said, just meeting him and seeing how he moves, seeing how he loves his family, seeing how he puts God first, like those kind of things, like that. I couldn't ask for a better mentor in that man. But again, meeting him, that changed the entire trajectory of my life. That changed exactly, who I thought I was and wanted to be into becoming who I am today. Wow. So I owe him a lot of credit.
The man, well, you're definitely giving him that credit, and I can tell you that I second everything you're saying, because I've seen it firsthand myself. I've witnessed Xavier serve his family and serve his wife while she pastors, and now he's bishop. But that is just that is just phenomenal that he had such an impact on your life. Do you think that has affected how you are as a husband and a father?
Oh, 100%. Because, him, he's a servant first. He has a servant first mentality, which is kind of who I am and who I was kind of ingrained to be even from a kid. But to see that on a larger scale, somebody who, probably has the money, the resources, etc., that will beat you to serving the community, that'll beat you to serving in the church, that, it's not beyond him to serve in any capacity. No. If he had to clean a toilet, he's going to clean it.
Absolutely.
Me too. He's such a humble guy in how he moves. And so, yeah, that definitely impacts me, just watching, how he raises his son and raises his daughter and is always there for him. And this is he's a very busy man. Right. But he will put all of that aside. Yes. Like he made time for me. There's nothing that I can't call him and ask him. Wow. There's not a time that I can say, hey, I need some guidance here, that he won't say, hey, I can put some time aside on the calendar or whatever the case may be. We can come eat and you can get it all out. Like those kind of things. It means the world to me.
Wow. That's tremendous. And I knew that he worked with the men in the church, and I've seen, he'll bring you a tissue, he'll, pick you up off the floor. Anything. But I did not know he had that much of an impact. So tell me, when did you meet your wife and how did that happen?
Man, I knew my wife in college.
Okay.
And
this is for the ladies.
And she was bad. She was tough. She was bad. Like the first time I ever saw her, I called her wifey. I was like, "Oh, that's wifey right there." Oh, she was beautiful. Long hair down her back, like just radiant smile, like all of those things. But I called her wifey then in college, but I would never like really just shoot my shot at her or nothing like that, because it was I knew I brought enough nonsense to the table that I didn't want to involve her in. I was just chasing girls and just being like any other college kid. You know what I'm saying? I just spent more time playing basketball and with the homies and, trying to bag as many females and get numbers as I could or whatever the case may be. And so I knew of her in school and we kind of socialized in the same circle. Some of her line sisters in the sorority that she was in were great friends of mine. And I used to tell like, yeah, put me down with her or whatever the case may be. But I never really took that serious until after I graduated college. And I was like, really in that transition point in my life, like, I'm tired of just meeting any girl. I want a girl that's just genuine, like that case, whatever the case may be. And I think I went out with my cousin, and I don't remember if it was my graduation night or it might have been a night after that. It used to be a place that was really jumping called the M Bar. And I went one night and she just happened to be there and she had just cut all her hair off. She had this short little pixie cut. And I was like, oh, my cousin was like, man, who is that? And I was like, man, I said, that's Natasha. He's like, you know her? He said, you ain't never tried to holler at her? I was like, I mean, man, not really, you know what I'm saying? She ain't really that type of girl. He said, man, you need to go holler at her. So he kind of put the battery in my back. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go holler at her. And so went and shot my shot, bought her a drink or whatever, and I was broke then too. We was all broke. So you bought a girl a drink when you was broke days,
Yeah, it was important.
Yeah. So got her number, asked her on a date or whatever, like to go to the movies, and she canceled on me the first date. And she canceled. And normally my ego would I would feel so like some type of, I don't even remember what excuse she gave me, but I would feel some type of way with my normal ego. But I was kind of like, you know what?
Type of way.
I'm gonna, let me try this again. So tried again and she agreed to come or whatever. And I remember we were driving to the place on the first date and she asked me, she's like, you been on any dates or whatever? And I was like, man, I might have been on a couple of dates. I ain't really, not really. And I was like, what about you? And she's like, well, yeah, I've been on a couple of, first dates, but I hadn't been on a second date. And so in my mind, I said, well, no matter what happens, I at least got to go on a second date with her to make sure that I'm not the same as every other guy, but at that point, after we went on our first date and then our second, we was locked in. Like I took her back to meet my family. I'm not even sure if we had been dating for maybe a month and a half. My mom was cooking, they were having a barbecue back home in Paris and I asked her to go with me. And when my mom met her, she was like, I don't care, whatever else you do, we keeping her. And so
that's how the family is, right?
And I remember she pulled me in her room. Keith, she is so beautiful.
Oh,
she is,
inside and out.
And I was like, I know, and I'm probably grinning from ear to ear. She just had that kind of effect on me. So
Natasha is great.
Yeah, but we kind of were raised with the same values, the same core values. So it was easy for me to date her. Like we had the same kind of values in being brought up in the church and loving your family and knowing your great grandparents and those kind of things. So we shared in that.
Wow.
And so that made it easy. And, like I tell people, it's, we've done life together. We were broke together. We do great, like that kind of thing.
How many years of marriage?
We're approaching 10 years. So we're about to have our 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
In May. So
10 years, an 8-year-old and a
3-year-old.
And a 3-year-old.
Maddox and McKinley.
Maddox and McKinley. Listen, you keep little Maddox fly, and now you got this little girl coming up, and you're not gonna be able to do nothing with her.
Oh man, she's a tyrant. she's a mess.
So what you say? So is it true that you when they say him who finds a wife finds a good thing, did you know that Natasha you said you called her wifey early on?
Yeah.
Did you kind of know in your head? And I'm asking this question for the women because women spend a lot of time with men, right? Mm-hmm. That sometimes I think don't have the best intentions.
Sure.
And I guess I'm just wanting to ask the question for the girls. Do you pretty much know it when you see it? Almost like
Yeah, I think so. I would say so. Like, I did know it, and I would say through dating and times and things of that nature. Like, it's so interesting. I've had this conversation so much recently, but I have a strong opinion on this. But
good. I want to hear it.
So, you said, women spend a lot of time with men. And, I think a lot of women spend time with men and feel like men are wasting their time. Back to your point of he who finds a wife finds a good thing. First of all, I don't think it's happenstance that most of the most successful men in the world are married. You know what I'm saying? From a standpoint of, them growing their careers and things like that, having that foundation at home propels you in a different way. But I say all of that to say women operate on timelines. When y'all started as a young girl, you said, okay, I want this, and that in my life. So it's I want to be married by this time. I want to have a kid by this time. I want to be at this space in my career. Men don't move like that. Men need something that pushes them in order to be successful. Right. So, because like me and my wife, we dated 5 years before I proposed to her. Now her timeline in her head is saying he should have proposed to me a long time ago. She's disgruntled about it and she's making it known. Mm-hmm. But the thing about men is we want to know, can I truly provide for this woman?
Wow.
If I'm going to be married, can I hold down this household financially? Can I provide for her spiritually? Am I ready for that spiritually and mentally to move forward? And can I be the leader that she needs? Because I love this girl.
Wow.
I want to be able to give her what she deserves, not just what she just wants. What I feel like she truly deserves is a man that's whole. Mm-hmm. And if a man does not feel that he is there yet, he is absolutely not going to move forward. That's just the truth of it.
Thank you.
But like women, y'all on that time clock, it's like, I got to have a baby by this time because my body ain't going to get snatched back or, whatever the case may be. And so with that, like I said, being married is what propelled me as well in my career, because at the point that my first son was born, right? At the point that we have a baby, mm-hmm. or at the point that she was even pregnant, mm-hmm. right? Was yes. when she was pregnant. And that was when I reached out to you and said, look, I need a house.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it was going to take. I didn't know whether we was truly ready, but she's pregnant. I need a house.
Yes.
So that's how we end up with house.
Right.
Baby gets here. I'm working in retail. I'm working, some days I might be working 10 to 6. Some days I'm working 9 to 6:30. Some days I'm working 12 to 9:30. It's all over the place. And I'm working weekends.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, he's here. I need more time with my kid. I need to be able to be supportive in the household. Mm-hmm. I need a better schedule. So then I move roles, right? I move out of the retail space. I get me a role that's going to have me working from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And even take a pay cut to do so, because that's what's important to me, is the time back, right? And the consistency in my schedule to be able to align my life in a more consistent way. Now, at the point that baby girl is on the way and my wife is pregnant, my conversation with my mentor was literally, look, I got another baby on the way and that baby's going to cost me $23,000 more. I need a $23,000 raise, mm-hmm. And that's what propelled me to say, I need to make a career move, and so marriage and those key points in life and life's transitions of having kids is what propelled me to do that.
It's amazing.
So for men, you have to have something, again, like I said, my cousin at the club put the battery in my back to say, go talk to her.
Yes.
You have to have something that puts that battery in your back that says, this is what's going to push me forward. Mm. A lot of times women think, well, it's the time that he put in, because you operate on time, that says, okay, he's ready for marriage with me because he's been here for 4 years. And it's like, nah, that's not the case. That man needs to feel some level of wholeness within himself. If he does not feel that, he is not moving forward. Until he feels like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this, and we can do this together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that is just, I love that you have a strong opinion about that. And that's a really good explanation, because there's just, I mean, nowadays there's just, the girls are just sitting back and, you know, it's just not moving as quickly. It's different with social media.
Yeah.
Do you still believe in that traditional date? Like if you were if you were mentoring a young man and he told you he was interested in a young lady, what would you tell him?
Yeah, I'm pretty traditional in my stance on things, but you know, the dating world and today, like you brought up social media, people live off what they read on a meme nowadays.
Yes.
So if the meme says that man doesn't make this amount of money, so don't date him, that's what people do. So the dating world is a little bit more complicated than it was when I was coming up. Like I said, me and my wife, we broke together. Like our dates was going to the movies, hanging out, you know, going bowling, those kind of things. Nowadays, they got memes out to say date better be, you know, $200 at bare minimum. You know what I'm saying? And people take that.
Yeah.
People take that to heart. You know, I had a conversation with a young girl at the office recently about the same kind of thing. She says, "Well, I want a man that's where I'm at in my career right now." She's making 6 figures at 26 years old.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, you know, no disrespect.
Boo.
However, your dating pool gonna be real small if you think you're gonna find you another man at 26 making 6 figures, because he doesn't have something that, unless he's just super driven or came up in a household where his dad was just super corporate and by the book and stuff like that and just drives him to do that, he's not gonna do it until he has something that puts that battery in his back. And so I gave her that same framework that I just gave you is what I gave her. She went, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Unless you're my son, my 26-year-old Columbia graduate who's a tech co-founder that raised millions of dollars in venture capital. Now, with women and no man in the house. But no, that's a sidebar. I just had to throw there.
But that's a good sidebar.
He's a unicorn.
That's a good sidebar. But he's a unicorn because of what he saw his mom do.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
He says, my mom's an entrepreneur. My mom put in the work. My mom worked hard. You know what I'm saying? My mom bet on herself. My mom, you know, kept pushing and kept educating herself to expand her business. My mom decided that being just a lawyer wasn't good enough. My mom became a real estate. She got in real estate. That's not good enough. My mom became a real estate broker. That's from the optics of what was right there with him in his household, that he's able to say, this guided me to say, I can bet on myself in these spaces to be able to go be a person that can generate millions of dollars. Had he not had you there.
Wow. Kid.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what this is about. Like you here to tell me I'm a king, you a queen.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like you deserve your flowers as well, because you know, if it had not been for seeing that and seeing the person that you are, the love that you show, the integrity that you have, the amount of ambition that you have to keep pushing forward, and you're still doing it today.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Starting this right here, this platform, this is all business that he's able to see. He's like, she didn't stop there. Come on, man. Come on, man. When you see somebody around you, you have somebody in your corner and you see them grinding, and you say, that person didn't stop there. They kept seeing how they could become greater, how they could do more, how they could impact the community, that kind of thing. That's important, because again, it's hard to be what you never see. This is what he saw. This was his optics. You said being a hairdresser ain't gonna be enough.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're probably doing phenomenally. You know what I'm saying? Because you're doing celeb hair and stuff like that. But you know, everything that you've tapped into, it's the thought of how can I be the greatest that's in it.
Wow.
Now you might not reach it, but like I say, people that shoot for the moon land somewhere amongst the stars.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. But I just got choked up, and so I'm a little off my game because I struggled with that as a single mom, and so to hear the words, I mean, and your kids aren't just gonna walk around and go, "Oh, like you're the greatest," but does my son love me? Does he treat me like that? But I don't get it, because, and that's why it's so important for me to showcase men and showcase men like you, who I need women. I need the world to understand that there are good guys like you out there, who are good husbands, who are good fathers, who choose to the right path and excel in their career, and then choose to be servants. And you just, that's why you're a minister. You're a minister because you just ministered to my spirit, so much so that it pretty much choked me up. And I appreciate every word that you said, because I don't look at it, the same way. You're just grinding it out here. You're not thinking about it or ever thinking why. Yeah. So I appreciate those words, which leads me to ministry and talking about the ministry. And so I know you got ordained during COVID, but can you tell me what life has been like since you've gotten into the ministry?
Yeah, I mean, a whole lot of preaching, like right off the bat, shoot, I think we were doing Bible studies and stuff prior to even being ordained. And then, the pandemic happens, and then it's, how do you reach people? Because everybody's at home, and, it's like, do you give up on it? Do you give up on the church? Do you give up on being a minister? And it's like, nah, we gotta pivot. We gotta really reach people regardless. And so we went from being able to be in service and touch people and preach and that to, we got to record everything. Right. And so it became, weekly schedules of, who's on first, pretty much like, okay, well, how many Bible studies can you come crank out on a recording? How many sermons can you come and crank out on recording? So that way we have content that we can release weekly, and really reach people. We started men's Bible study, and, I had never even heard of Zoom before the pandemic, but we bought Zoom licenses and said, okay, we can do men's Bible studies virtually. Yeah. And we began to do that. And, and ministry comes in multiple ways. It's not just about preaching and delivering the message. Sometimes ministry is just me being able to sit and talk with someone, and really just better yet, beyond just being able to sit and talk with someone, sometimes ministry is just being able to be a listening ear for somebody and what they're going through. So it's that kind of thing. And so it was taxing, trying to, figure out your family life and still, preach and deliver messages and Bible studies. But so many great things came out of that, yes. Because at the point that you have to teach the word, you don't have no choice but to learn it, And I tell people all the time, I'm no Bible scholar. Right. I'm reading the Bible. I got a Bible plan that I'm reading right now for the first time. I'm like, I'm gonna grind it. I'm gonna read this whole Bible in a year. And I'm enjoying this Bible plan and doing that because I'm able to just read the Bible as a story. Yes. Rather than just reading it to teach someone. So being able to read it as a story is allowing me to internalize it more. It's allowing me to see different things that I didn't see because I'm not looking to find specific points that articulate what God gave me as a title or God gave me as a message. I'm just able to take the story in. You know what I mean? Yes. And so it's great. And then we had, our men's Bible studies on Mondays, our Man Day Mondays. And what cultivated from that was after George Floyd happened, we as men, we get on this Zoom call and we got men, elders, youngers, all across the country on this call. And we decided, let's just talk about this thing. Let's just talk about George Floyd and what's happening. And when we did that, we got grown men really letting it out on this call, like, crying in tears, what they're feeling. That was hard to watch. Because, you're looking at it like that could be me. Because, we're raised with the thought of, man, as soon as that police officer pull up to you on a car, hands at 10 and 2.
Yes.
And we're raised in a different way. So seeing George Floyd, you going, that could be me. But that made us realize that there's more to ministry than just this Bible study.
Yes.
We really need to do check-ins with men to see where we are and give ourselves an outlet. So from that, we were able to cultivate another ministry, a men's ministry, that we called AYO, which just means, are you okay?
Oh, I love it.
And we would do a check-in with men bi-weekly. Where are you at mentally, physically, spiritually, and fiscally on a scale from 1 to 10? Where are you at? And we would just go around the horn and let every man talk about where they were at, how they were doing mentally, spiritually. And then through that, you have all these men on the same call. Well, you begin to have resources for what you're dealing with. Man, I'm really struggling financially. Man, here's some money, bro. You good. I'm really struggling in my spirit. I have a kid that's suicidal. Some other man on the call, man, I've dealt with that, man. Here, let me tell you how I've gone through it. That kind of thing. And you begin to see, you hear men going, man, 2 months ago we talked and I was on here saying I'm at like a 3 or 4 mentally. Today I feel like I'm a 9.
Wow.
And you watch that transition in men's lives through Bible studies and through the AO that really just brings them up in a way, and you're seeing them do life and go get married and those kind of things.
Wow.
So it's a lot that comes into ministry, like and it's a challenge, but it's one that God puts you. If He puts you there, you're there for a reason. And some things are seasons. Some seasons are better than others,
Yeah, I love to see you giving back to other men. And that is so powerful because women, we always got women's movement and women's
100%.
right. And I'm not discounting them. Because women are still far behind men in pretty much everything, including salaries. But it is it's nice to see that you're sharing that men can actually get support within community, within church, and your ministry to other men, I think is just phenomenal because we leave them to the side, like to figure it out on their own, which is why mental health is such a big deal. Because if it goes back to what you said, if your value is on how you can provide for your family and how you can, take care of your wife properly, then, oh my goodness, yeah, something happens to your job, something happens, you don't want to go home and say, hey, honey, I lost my job. And I see that stress, even like it with my husband. He's got a new position and it is beating him up right now. And I can see it. I can, so I'm trying to leave him be, but also, he's texting and like, this is hard work, but my value is in my marriage and I appreciate you as my wife. And it's so important that you guys also have support, because I wish he was he's a deacon, but I wish I know he goes to the meetings and he does this, but I'm just wondering if he has that system where he's actually picking up the phone. And I'm going to ask him about that and utilizing it.
I encourage any man to find yourself an outlet. I'm fortunate enough to have, guy friends that we're all extremely close. We're all married, and we give each other an outlet. We really call each other and just talk through things. I can remember when my wife was going through postpartum depression.
Oh.
That was something that I didn't understand. I didn't expect, and I didn't understand, why she was so different or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, really struggling. It's because I'm like, this is not the same person that I'm used to. Like, what's going on? And I remember I finally called one of my homeboys. He said, yeah, man, my wife went through the same thing. And he began to lay it all out there for how he does. And man, just hearing him say my wife went through the same thing made it easier for me to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So, man, we need that outlet because nobody knows. It's tough. It's tough being a husband and being a father and, operating in ministry or just work in general. Nobody sees the moments that, you put your kids to bed and your wife went to sleep and then you just curl up in a ball and you're crying.
Wow.
Nobody sees that.
And men don't show that.
Yeah, and it's because we're raised to, you got to be tough and you can't be emotional and all that thing. And those are things in ministry that I'm trying to, create safe spaces, but more so give men an opportunity to understand that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to just let your emotions out. You know what I'm saying? Let it out, because once it's out, it makes it tremendously easier to try to deal with it, but if you internalize it and everything that's throwing fire on it, it just makes it worse, and you never know, again, who you might be in a room with that might be able to help you navigate through something. And that's what we have to understand more as men.
And so, you have just been phenomenal. And I just love that you're reading the Bible like I'm reading the Bible now. It was so funny. I decided to do the Bible in a year, all 66 books, and I've just been getting through it. And so it was funny because I started out the Genesis, where the Cain and Abel. And so I went back to New Jack City. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. And okay, this is in the Bible. And reading it, like you said, as a story. Now, do I have my commentary? Yes. And right next to me. So I just want to know, I want you to be able to tell, because I know we got to wrap this up, and we probably got to sit down again because you have so much information to share. But I want you to just kind of tell me, are there any pain points in your life right now, or any pain points that you basically experienced that you faced or are dealing with currently, or anything like that might be helpful to talk about? Just,
I think I've kind of gotten through some pain points, probably in the last 6 months. Again, I was a member of Love Nation for 13 years. And when God was just expressing to me, it's time to just walk away and go do something else. That was something I couldn't understand, because I was like, I'm in a great space. I'm preaching. I'm doing all these things, and we're just trying to get over the hump here. But, God said, walk away. And I realized over the amount of time and the taxing of the preaching and stuff like that, I had just become so drained that I didn't feel like I had something that I could really pour out anymore.
And that can happen.
And so I had become really complacent because of how drained I was. And so I really just have gone through a refueling, a recharging, a rebuilding stage within myself. I got myself back in the gym and started doing that kind of thing. Like I was telling you, just doing my Bible plan, just going to services and, visiting churches and things, and just going to just enjoy the service, the worship, and just be able to take the word in for myself rather than, trying to see how the Spirit of God is moving in a place and using me, because it's a lot. Like even if a minister, even if you're not the one up there preaching, you're there supporting another minister, you're still trying to see what the Spirit is doing in a room and how you can really help the other minister in any way that God needs you. And so I've kind of gone through that, and then, we just crossed, Black History Month. And I think one of the challenging things in corporate spaces is being your authentic self as a Black man.
Wow.
And
talk about that.
We had a VP get up there and speak on a panel of African American leaders one day. And she said, it took me 10 years of working in corporate America before I finally decided to be my authentic self. And I was like, man, I feel that. So, I say it probably took me about 10 before I was like, I'm not going to do the code switching anymore. I'm not going to be a conformist in the space. If I do the work, if I give God all the glory, if I really just move as who I truly am, God will take care of everything else. but that narrative of code switching in corporate America is really strong because
So to explain what is code switching?
code switching is like um it's what you see people do. Like, you ever seen the video of Barack Obama walking down the line, he's shaking hands of all these white leaders, and he sees Kevin Durant at the end, he's like, hey, what's up, how you doing?
Yes,
like that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's how you choose to articulate yourself. Like, I'm in a room with you
Yeah.
and multiple black people. I articulate myself in a certain way, and then I go in a room with maybe a bunch of white leaders and I change my voice, I change how I present myself and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Just to be accepted. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because in that world, black people, we feel like we have to be exceptional in order to be the exception in the room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So you begin to switch it up, right? And so that's something that I've become more grounded and more comfortable in who I am. I'm a 6'5" guy that loves fashion, sneakers, and has a nose ring. Ooh. I'm not changing who I am to conform to old business standards. I'm not cutting my beard off and wearing nothing but black, blue, and gray to work and those kind of things. And so, it's interesting because my career has continued to grow.
Praise the Lord.
But yeah, it's all glory to God in that. But, at the same time, I've taken the time. People see me and they think I'm extremely young. They think I'm 25, and I'm like, nah, I'm about to be 40.
You look 25.
I've taken those 25-year-olds. I get asked all the time, to be a mentor. And before, I didn't think I was worthy of being a mentor of somebody, at that age, trying to cultivate their career. But I've taken the time to really invest in people again in that way. And just, I feel like I'm humbled by the fact that people ask. And some great things have come out of that. So it's been good.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Hey, you still got your Can-Am?
I do. Man, but I really ponder selling that bad boy because I got about 750 miles on mine, so that means I ain't riding it nowhere. Last summer it was like 110 degrees every time you looked up.
Yeah, see, that's why mine is on the East Coast, because I get to ride through those mountains up in the Poconos, drive up, look at places to go kayaking.
I make a payment every month and just go, man, you know what? I'm probably gonna sell it, because somebody else could probably benefit from it, but. I might give it one more summer and see if I can.
You see my truck? I got my truck out there, the 25-footer. I got a Sprinter van, and my F-350 with the plow. I want to sell. I was like, should I be selling all these? And then I was like, well, maybe I should sell my motorcycle too. But I have so much joy in riding it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
But I get to ride it a lot more because I keep it at my East Coast house.
Yeah.
If it was hot, like if I had it down here in Texas, I don't think so. But I want to thank you so much for joining us. You have shared some phenomenal information. I'm just going to do this for the cameras. You created this trademark of the Loyator, and I appreciate you coming up with that word because it helped me reach further in trying to describe my life as an attorney and a real estate broker, which folks tried to box me in and tell me I couldn't do both of those. But because I aligned my practice with land and probate and real estate, my law practice, and then combined the sales aspect, it just was perfect. And it actually helped me be a little bit more bold about making that, combining that career. And so I wanted to thank you for that. I want to thank you for being a guest on Black Aristocrat. You are an absolute king and you deserve your crown. I'm like, Keith, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was so nice to have you. You can do whatever you want. You can move around.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. It was fun. It was good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to subscribe right here, right now to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on all socials at Alisha Melvin ESQ and #Black Aristocrats. Thank you so much for joining us.